All right, welcome back. I hope everybody had an enjoyable break. Got to see some of the exhibits. Did everybody get in to see the exhibits? Fantastic. Please take the time to visit each of the booths and talk to the people here. We're going to get started, and we're actually going to start looking at something that I'm actually extremely passionate about. We're going to actually start talking about motivation. We're going to look at how values impact motivation. So Dr. Keis is going to spend some time working with us now in a best practice andragogy setting. We're going to be obviously looking to do things in an interactive way. Dr. Keis is going to spend some time working with us to try and help explore our motivations and how we can then take that and empower or encourage the people that we work with to also shift towards change and improvement. So we'd like to welcome Ken back.
Thanks, Aaron. Do you have my second? There he is. Man, aren't those guys in the back good? We should give them a hand. Yeah, good job. So welcome back. What we're going to do is really continue this process of clarity for ourselves, but specifically around values in our work is based, and this is actually chapter 8 of the book Much More Like Me, is what we call motivational or internal values. But before we get there, I want to do some sort of interactive pieces. And now, first of all, there's a handout that everybody has or should have. If you don't, Aaron has some out in the back, and we have some more out here in the front, so make sure you have that handout. You'll notice from a giveaway point of view, there is a draw sheet in the very front of that. Fill that out. I will collect it in about 35 minutes. You're going to have some table work you're going to be involved with for about 20 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I'll collect it at that time, and we'll draw for a free online course around this before we go. Okay, so let's just dive into it. When we talked about assessments, this has been our work. Our company's been around since 1979. So we've been around for a little while and really created a holistic set of assessments to take people to the next level, and then built out online courses as well around that process. So we talked about square wheels. I'm going to suggest to you that values clarity is one of the round wheels that is easy. Nobody ever pushes back on this. It's something that you can embrace immediately to what we call, and I'll make this quote at the very end, to make the right decision every time. So again, it's around self-awareness. Now, Gallup did a study and said, what percentage of people dislike their job from slightly irritated to loathe? What do you think that number is? This is Gallup, 80 to 80%. So 8 or 9 out of 10 people dislike what they do from mildly irritate to loathe. Now, there's different reasons for that. Some of them is that you work for somebody who is less than desirable, you're in the wrong setting, or you're doing the wrong thing. So we're going to be talking about some values, and yours values specifically here, and we're giving you an assessment in about 10 minutes. But before we get there, let's just talk about this. Why should we care about values? Well, UCLA did a study and said, when I know what my values are, my stress levels go down, because clarity reduces cortisol, reduces consternation, reduces frustration, reduces confusion. So when I know that I know that I know around my values, then I can go to that next level. There was another study that really was talking about willpower, and everybody's talking about resilience. So resilience, willpower, / sort of a synonym for each other, is that when I know what I stand for, then I also have more willpower, more resilience. It replenishes me because I know who I am. Number 3, University of Chicago said that, my openness increases by knowing who I am, because I'm not trying to be somebody else. I'm not attempting to say, what do you need from me? I'm just being authentic. And so that authenticity helps people to be more objective. If anybody works in education, it also helps with our ability to receive negative feedback, because my personhood is not in question. I know what I stand for, and now I'm just more open to the fact, you know what, Ken, you really have showed impatience in the meetings, and that is really causing frustration with other people, and it's just showing that you're shutting other people down because of that impatience. So I am open to feedback. And then the final one around education was that test scores go up when students know who they are, rather than the peer pressure is just enormous. And I was talking to a friend of mine who actually is an RCMP member. His daughter had to move out of the city based on social media bullying. And it's just, I couldn't even imagine what that's like now, not growing up with those kinds. I knew what it was. Now, here's what one of my values are. This is my grandson, Miller. And so this is our first grandson, and Papa is like ecstatic. So how many here as a grandparent? Did you have any idea? You know, skipping over having the kids, going straight to grandkids is recommended. It is, yeah, definitely, yeah. My wife, Brenda, who's out at the desk there, we love playing tennis. She loves playing tennis. This is a place that we stayed in Cabo last Christmas. So when we think about behavioral values, we'll come to the values assessment here in a moment, but I want to drive you into the handouts that we've given you. I think it's about the third or fourth page in, and say, what's the window by which we want to validate or confirm or embrace values? And that is the window of credibility. So you will go to a sheet that looks like this, and there's 4 questions on it. Could you go to that sheet on credibility, please? And there's 4 questions there. What is credibility? Who has it? Who lacks it? And why should I care about it? So what I'd like you to do at your table, but preferably in partners, because if you have a group discussion with 5 or 6, it just gets overwhelming. But with a partner, or maybe with 3 of you, could you respond to these 4 questions? And I'm going to give you about 4 minutes or so. And then we're going to link why this is important, and linking back to the concept of values as you start to clarify your own. And if you don't have a handout, put your hand up and we'll make sure that you get one. Okay? So you have about 4 minutes with your partner to answer and respond to these 4 questions. And then we'll come back and say, what did you come up with? You may begin. Enjoy. Two more minutes. 30 more seconds. And thank your partners, please. So let's lean into this a bit. This is interactive. So just yell out your responses or communicate your responses so everybody else can hear you. So first of all, let's ask you the question, what is credibility from a definition? What did you come up with? Honesty? Say again? Trust? Knowledgeable? Humility? Experience? Anything else? Reliable? Okay. Believable? Truthful? Great. Thank you. So we seem to be on the same track there. Let's go to the next one on who has credibility outside of your mother, okay? How many here had their mother down there? Parent? Yeah, okay. So who has credibility? Who'd you put down there? And then this might be unique for each person here. Professionals? Not-for-profits? Okay, so credibility is contextual. Excellent. Anybody else? Experts in the field. Okay. Ongoing education. Super. Say again? Vivian Brown. Okay. Thank you. And then who lacks credibility? Politicians. They've never been on the list before. TikTok. Now, there's context for that. Why are politicians, no matter where I do this in the world, so Singapore, Australia, UK, South Africa, why are politicians always on this list? What is the behavior that drives the response? Lying, I guess that. Okay, that starts. Lack of transparency. They don't do what they say, all those things. If that is true for them, would that be true for us in our credibility we do with others? Like I might have a friend said, yeah, we'll be there at 5 o'clock for dinner, and they come at 5:30. It's not as egregious, but is that still a gap? Yes. I shall have that report done by Monday, but it's not till next Friday. These are all contextual things for credibility. So let's go to the last one, which is the purpose of this exercise. Should we care about credibility? Why? Why should we give a flying rip about it? Politicians don't. Say again? Respect? And respect does what? Who can you trust? But if I have credibility, which is trust, then what does that do for us? Safety? Informed decisions? What is your openness level to somebody you don't trust? What is your openness level to somebody that you do trust? Would that be reciprocal to you? If I don't trust you, what's the likelihood I'm going to be open and willing to share what's really going on? Both personally and professionally. Anybody here have a significant partner? You've never had credibility gaps ever? Okay, so turn the page. Good work. So why do we care about credibility? So our definition is this. First of all, it is your reputation. If you don't know me, if I don't know you, there's no way for us to establish credibility. So it's kind of neutral territory. So reputation is established in behavior, in motion, and the characteristics and qualities many of you have identified. Honesty, fair, compassionate, and then you guys said competent, and this is important. If any of you work for a really, 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 really nice idiot, so they're nice, but they don't know what they're doing. So competence is important. Positive, open, inspirational, reliable, trustworthy, all the things that you mentioned. Let's go to item number 4 on that list. Where does credibility exist? In the minds of other people. Now, there's an exception to this. Doesn't that suck sometimes? Now, it's not possible to have high credibility with everybody you meet, but if I'm working with you, if I have a relationship with you, if I'm a patient or a client and I don't trust you, or if you don't have credibility, then what's the likelihood of full disclosure, full engagement, all yada, yada, yada. Now, what's the purpose of this? Let's go to the bottom of that page. It says, where does credibility exist in the minds of other people? There's an exception. I'll talk about it in a second. But what causes credibility to go up and credibility to go down in general terms? Behavior seen as what? Appropriate by who? The other person, right? So somebody said, I didn't do anything. Do you know that the sin of omission applies to credibility as well? Now, Brenda's out there. She doesn't like me telling this story. So Brenda's my wife that's in the corner of the registration table. And so when we first got married, and we got married when we were in our 30s, so we're more, nobody wanted us. I guess that's what the deal was. So we had bought a townhouse, and that townhouse had a kitchen table that looked out to the parkade, which was a covered parking lot. Brenda was teaching ESL at the local college. Came home at 9 o'clock at night. I'm sitting at the table and I'm reading the paper. I think we were married 3 months. And so I'm looking at that, reading the paper. She comes in and then she gets through the front door and then she's kind of like upset with me. Why? I didn't get up and open the door, right? So was I sitting there? I wonder if I could just tick off my new bride. Just 3 months. So now no hate. I'm trained now. I get up and open doors, okay? So the sin of omission applies in the context of work personally and professionally. If I'm a supervisor and you have toxic people on the team and you don't deal with them, what happens with your credibility with everybody else? Gone, right? So it's personality, it's values as what's important to them. What increases or decreases, what I do, what I don't do, but also what I'm linked to. Now, this is a truth for all of us in the room. It's the reality. Every single person in this room has a level of credibility with everybody you've met, if you like it or not. It's the price you pay for showing up. I will have a level of credibility with everybody in the room based on what I do and what I don't do, how I do it, if I like it or not. You will as a participant, as a conference attendee, as a colleague, if you want it or not. The key is most of us don't know what it is. It goes back to the self-awareness. My credibility is low because I didn't do anything, or I didn't the sin of omission applied, or I wasn't skilled, et cetera, et cetera. No judgment, just the reality. Now, here's a caveat to that. Many of you are familiar with this book, which published many, many years ago. However, Scott Peck had a condition which was nearly impossible to treat in psychiatric or psychology terms, and that was called character disorder. Have you ever met somebody that it's always somebody else's fault? They never take any ownership. They take no responsibility for the condition they find themselves in. No matter what we teach today, what you go through in the future, there are some people, no matter what, there's no way to have a high level of credibility with them. It's just impossible. Let it go. And if we have a high level of credibility with everybody we meet, it's probably dysfunctional. But the key is, if I'm trying to build a relationship with you and we're trying to work together, then what could be some things that can contribute to that? And can I understand what drives them and what drives me? Have you ever been irritated by what other people have done or not done, and it's taken you out? Yes or yes, right? So maybe sometimes our tolerance of or understanding of other people and what drives them, what motivates them. Now, could you go down a couple more pages? I think it's page 6 or 7 in the bottom corner of it. You'll see a little oval. There's a caveat to this, and that is there's a credibility with others. Every organization has a credibility. Your association has a credibility. If I say Air Canada, if I say WestJet, American, Disney, American Express, there is a context of that, but there's also a level of credibility with self. Have you ever met somebody that discounts their own value? Ken, good job. Oh, it was nothing. You know, he really contributed. Well, it wasn't really nothing. And I want to encourage you again, not from a self-centered point of view, from an ego point of view, from an arrogant point of view, but from a self-honoring point of view, is that I need to love self and accept self before I can really give to you. So knowing your values as we dive into this next is equally important to build your credibility, because sometimes we've been around people who are discounting their own worth, and that's actually awkward for us, isn't it? To build relationship with them. And a lot of times we grow up in environments where we're not necessarily appreciated for our uniqueness. So in other words, do you remember the saying they used, now I'm not sure if parents still say it, kids are to be seen, not, what does that do to somebody like moi? My dad always said I talk too much. I got even. I get paid to do it now, okay? Now, my dad didn't know. He's 90, he's still alive, but he was just come through a culture where this manipulation, and yes, it's not to say that I had inappropriate times and speaking too much and, it's time to shut up, all that kind of stuff. But if I'm not embraced for who I am, or you're not embraced for who you are, then what's the likelihood I could bring the most in what I bring? So values clarification helps us go that. So when we look at this, self-others. Now, on the very bottom of this page, my colleague, Jim Kuzu, who endorsed a couple of our books, New York Times bestseller, he also wrote the book Credibility. And he identified 4 qualities which are critically important for any environment as far as work environment and or association. And those 4 qualities are listed there in the bottom. And that is honesty, competence, forward-looking, and inspiring. Here's how this works. First of all, I need to trust you. Are you authentic? Are you real? Are you telling the truth? Number 2, do you know what you're doing? My wife had a double hip replacement, both hips replaced in 2020. Do you think she wanted to have a surgeon who was knowing what he's doing? Anybody have a replacement in 90 minutes? Like, that's crazy that they're able to go in, take that, replace the hip, done in 90 minutes. Number 3 is forward-looking, meaning where are we going? And that's the challenge when and again, I said I've worked with the government, is that sometimes they don't know where they're going because all these political things it's waving, what's the policy, so that could be frustrating for you. And inspiring is, where do I fit in my goals, my purpose, my gifts, my talents, in where we're going? Is there an alignment for that? And those are the 4 qualities that are important to have credibility in any workplace. So we talked about self-awareness before, but we're talking about, this is just leadership before we get into the values. What are 3 reasons that leaders succeed? Self-awareness, emotional mastery. Here's this. Self-awareness is not enough. If I am a jerk and I know I'm a jerk and I still being a jerk, I'm still a jerk. Self-management is, how can I manage my own emotions and have intelligence to say, at this time, Ken, this behavior is eroding your credibility, it's not building it. And then finally, if I'm going to really lead others, a deep understanding of other individuals, both personality and values. Okay, so if you fill out that draw form, I'm going to collect it about that, and we're going to do a draw for a free course at the end. So, personality. Could you turn the pages to the last handout before we go to the assessment? I briefly talked about this in the purpose section, but I'm just going to go through this, that there's 7 components in here. So, personal style or personality is one component. That's my book, Wired to More Like Me, and that's a different piece. Then we think about biophysical factors in my health and my wellness. In 1988, I was misdiagnosed with manic depression, put on lithium. We found out I was actually hypoglycemic. So wellness, so I had a glucose tolerance test. I actually still have the marks of all the needles after taking that glucose. That said, if I'm not well, if I'm not healthy, then how can I concentrate? How can I bring my best? Regardless if you know your purpose, if my wellness is off, and you know that. And I'm dyslexic, so is it COPD? How do you say that? Okay, so my assistant of 30 years died of that in 2020. So we have a personal sort of relationship with that. If I don't have my health, then what do I have? Self-worth levels. You and I could have identical values, one with high self-worth, one with low self-worth. Do I value myself, not from a self-centered point of view, but from a self-honoring point of view? Bottom left-hand corner, you know what? There's dynamics in environments. I've been all around the world. We've been in China, we've been in Hong Kong, we've been in Singapore, Malaysia, Australia, the UK. Differences exist. I mean, you don't want, how many here from Ontario? Okay, you don't want to know what we think of you. Okay, so there's that side, right? Environmental systems are different, and I'm sure you think the same about us. So environmental systems, cultures have nuances. If we go down the bottom there on social teachers, that's where we're going to go around. We have all these inputs that are causing outputs. What we let into our life is also going to have out, and that's what we're going to talk about in our value side. Emotional anchors, if I have any kind of traumatic event in life, both positive or negative, that's going to create a trigger that's independent of all these things. And of course, we talked about spirituality as well. So we want to play to our strengths, all of these different pieces that fit into it. Now, I want to do this as a sidebar. This was my reading on the beach last Christmas. And I just want to encourage that there are some breakthrough things. Brain energy, Dr. Chris Palmer is the assistant professor in which university again? Harvard. And as a psychiatrist, most of the people that he was treating for mental illnesses, he was just frustrated that he wasn't making headway. And here's what he did. He discovered that there are methodologies which are wellness focused, and this is my nutritional background, to be able to overcome that. He had somebody who was on psychiatric meds for schizophrenia for 30 years that he got off and had her completely cured before she passed away 12 years later. And it's really a metabolic disorder. Sorry for the misprint there. But it's that we have metabolic disorders. Now, as a nutritionist, we think about all the processed foods. That actually messes with your brain, messes with your energy, messes with your immunity. These were the things that he says is causing imbalances. I'm mentioning the book as a sidebar, and then we'll move on to values. That I just found it so valuable that he gave hope, that he had this person off those meds. I know what it was like to be put on lithium incorrectly. And 2 weeks later, into taking the meds, I was ready to kill somebody because my body didn't need it. When I found out it was hypoglycemic, then it was mostly cured. And of course, I cheat every once in a while. The chocolate's out front. What are you doing that to me for, right? So, okay. So we have a full process there. So what I'd like you to do, how many, look at your table, see how many people there? You're gonna find a new leader. On these two tables here is the values preference indicator assessment. Get enough assessments for your table for that leader. Come get them, go. 2 tables up front here. Grab what you need. And then put back what you don't need, because we have just a net. Two tables, there's lots there. We have more if we need them. 1 for each person. So you can thank Cheryl and Aaron for organizing this. We mostly do the online now, which sells for $40, but we're including this here complimentary so that you really get a lean into it. Now, we're only going to be able to do part of this because of our time frame, but this is going to be, pardon the pun, a very valuable process. So we believe in motivational or internal behavioral values. There's obviously a lot more values that are available out there. Remember we mentioned clarity was the #1 contributor to habits of high performance individuals. So we have 21 behavioral values. Could you turn opposite of the inside front cover and you will see a list of 21 values. Here's what I'd like you to do. Now, those of you that are online, I'm gonna put the values on the screen and you're gonna do this privately with your activity as you Zoom, or if you're watching this on a recording. So first of all, you're gonna look at the 21 values. There's definitions that are behind them. We won't have them on the screen for the online audience. But here's what I'd like you to do in the time that we set. Now, by the way, this is your assessment being given to you as part of this experience. So don't worry if you think I wanna change this, but this activity is important. I'd like you to look at the top, or the 21, and I'd like you to identify your top 7 in order of priority from 1 to 7. I'm only gonna give you about 3 minutes to do this, okay? So look at this list of 21. Yes, there are other values, but this is for our purpose and our work and our research, and there's a reason why this list is what this list is. So you have about 2 to 3 minutes. Identify your top 7 values in sequence in order from 1 to 7. For those of you online, I have them here on the screen, and then hopefully you can read those. Just one more minute. Now you've identified your top 7 values in the sequence or order of priority from 1 to 7. Now, I'm going to ask a favor for those people that are in the room around your tables. If you have a table of 2, I'd like you to join another table so that the groups are from 4 to 6. No more than 6, prefer 4. If you're a group of 3, that's tolerable, but if you're 2, it is not. So if there's 2 at a table, could you now shift and move and join another table somewhere, somehow? And there's a reason for this, because 2 is going to degrade your experience. So could you shift, if there's only 2 at your table, could you shift and join so you have 4 to 6 at a table? We're friendly. Thank you for your flexibility on that. Now, here's your activity that you're going to be moving into. And of course, it's going to get a little noisier, so you're going to have to lean in. You're going to have to kind of get close. We'd like you now, as a group, you're going to go through and you're going to share your values with your team or your colleagues at this table. And if you're online, Aaron will give you some instructions there of doing it in breakout groups. And I encourage the people that are online that you would do this, because this can be transformational for you. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go into your groups, and the first person that's going to start sharing, and it doesn't matter, whoever decides, is going to share, my number 1 value is, let's say, tranquility. And then you're going to have a Reader's Digest reason about, I like quietness, I'm able at that, I seem to re-energize as a result of having tranquility. Really, conflict is just disturbing to me. And then you're going to go to the next person, and they're going to share. Now, if somebody says, friendship, and they have no explanation, as a group, you can hold them accountable and don't move on until they give you some kind of explanation. On the flip side, if somebody goes on and on for 20 minutes about friendship, then nobody else is going to get the share. So it's 3, 4, 5 sentences about why that value, bring context to the group about why that value is valuable and how that's sort of lived out in your life. And then you go to the next person and they say, my number 1 value is, and the next person, you do that all around your table. And then you get to the original person and you say, my number 2 value is. We're going to do this, and you're going to go as far as you can in the time assigned, which is around 12, 15 minutes, okay? And again, you are serving one another, so you're going to be good listeners to your partners, and you're also going to be contributing. And if this is a stretch for you, then I encourage you that this is a safe, supportive environment. This is a safe, supportive environment, correct? Yes, okay. Environment where you can lean into this in a place that you can kind of share what's important to you. We've got the instructions. Okay, so you're going to begin. This is going to be a full 12 to 15 minutes, so we're not going to interrupt. And the only thing I'm going to do is go around and collect your draw sheets while you're doing this, okay? So you have about 12 to 15 minutes. I'll give you the heads up. You have 2 minutes left. You may begin. Enjoy. Now I have your attention. Obviously, you are appreciating the conversations, are you not? So share with us, what was that like, that experience, what you just did? Invigorating? And what contributed to that invigoration? Okay, authenticity, honesty. Okay, great. What else? Open-mindedness. Explain. So as people shared, it brought you a different perspective of maybe an identical value you might have had or somebody else had, and what and how it was important to them was unique to them, correct? Okay, awesome. Any other sort of insights or thoughts of emotional? Aaron has the mic if you have something, so when you say emotional, explain. Aaron's just gonna come with the mic. That'll just help with our online recording part.
There you go,
Sorry.
Tracy.
Thanks. I think a lot of like our choices and how we ordered them is related to maybe trauma or life path and future. And so it brings up all these, like, you don't want to start really getting too much into it or we'll all start crying at the table. So,
Well, this table had 4 out of the 6 crying, so why would you?
It was pretty raw at our table too.
Yeah, okay. Very good. Now, bonding.
Yeah, I'd say bonding through sharing our values. I feel like I know these ladies a lot better than I did before, so that's what I experienced.
Cool. I want you to think about this. Are some of the people at your table like total strangers? No, some of them not. Or if they weren't, you work with them. Do you know more about this person in 15 minutes than maybe you did in 15 months? Or a total stranger that you've been around somebody else you're working with for 12 months, you know more about somebody you've been around for just a day on who they are, on what drives them, what encourages them. Again, I want to play devil's advocate. How hard was that as far as the process? Not, right? We complicate things. So, trick question, and thank you for your participation. You're going to be engaging your values here in another activity here in a minute. What makes something valuable? It's a trick question. You do. The thing is, okay, why do you value that? You know what? You don't even know, you don't even need to know why. You just need to know that it is your value. Now, there was a comment in the back of the room, and somebody says, well, the values are different if it's personal or business. I'm going to suggest to you, and I'm going to really push back, that these values are general. You take wherever you are, wherever you go. These are not work values and home values and friend values. These are values that are in general, and they're behavioral, they're internal motivators that are important. Now, there's other contextual values like family that are not on the list, and there's other things you can add to it. But our work is really around the internal things that if this is not present, I cannot sustain engagement in my life, or I'm going to feel not as fully engaged as possible. So now, those of you that have the assessment with you, could you turn the page over? And we do, when people do the values assessment, 98% of it is now online. And because this next part, we can't do it here, we don't have time, but this can be your homework because you're taking this home with you. This is the values matrix, where every value is compared to every other value 5 times. You will make 300 decisions on this one page. Did any of you have some challenges about what your priorities are? Like you wanted to have like 7 number 1 values. You didn't want to rank them, right? But in reality, do we have 7 number 1 values? We're always choosing something over another. Now, if somebody gets into the online world, people that do what you just did, window shopping, you just went through a list of 21 and you selected the top 7. And then people go through the matrix and they make 300 decisions and they get a different list. What do you think could be contributing to the fact that the first list doesn't match the second list? It's still your own opinion of self, but now we're forcing you to prioritize multiple times against multiple values. What might contribute to the first list about what's most important to you differing from the second list? What might? Experiences? Is it possible that we haven't done this work before, so we're not exactly sure? And this is not judgment, this is part of this journey of clarity, right? So clarity comes with effort, and if I haven't done it before, then how would I know? Have you ever had where people want you to value something when it isn't your value? Are there any social pressures? any cultures that say you better have wealth as one of your values because that's important to our culture. So you have all these sort of external things that want you to be a certain way, act a certain way, or be a certain way, which you talked about trauma. So we're going to suggest to you that these values, for the most part, will not change throughout your lifetime. They're going to be pretty close. So why they not match or do match or not match is a level of clarity. I haven't done it before. Now, as we are mentioned before, many of you wanted to have several number one values. So anybody here have a child that's less than 5 years of age? Okay, so I'm going to pick on you. Your first name again? Gina. So Gina, how old's your 5-year-old or your child? She's 3, and what's her name? April. Okay.
Oh,
so Gina, I'm going to take Gina now, and I'm going to put her on one side of the stage and on the other side, and I'm going to put this little 12 by 12 beam on the floor. And if you're at one end and you're going to walk like these kids to the other end, I'm going to give you $100. Would you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. No problem. Right. So now what I'm going to do, we're going to go to a 16-story building. You're going to be on one side. We're going to have you walk to the other side. Would you do it for the same $100?
Well, like, are we like tied in?
No.
Then-
For clarification
No.
is good.
No.
Yeah, no, then.
No. Okay. So you're not going to do it. So you probably want $150. That's what you say. You really drive. So you probably, most of us here wouldn't do it for any amount of money unless you're one of these guys or one of these people, right? Now, this is illustration purposes only. Gina, I'm going to put you on one side of the steel. I'm going to put April on the other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm holding April, but April's slipping out of my hands. And if you don't come to save her, she's going to fall 16 stories. How long will it take for you to be across?
Half a second.
Okay. The question for everybody here is, what are you willing to cross the beam for? What is that non-negotiable that you, and by the way, I would never, she's crying again. Okay.
So next time, just bring
Okay,
like
so I would
tissues.
never drop her. And by the way, I always use young children and I never use teenagers as an. He's 50. Drop him. Get some sense of the. Okay. Thanks, Gina, for participating in that. So we're not here to judge what it is or isn't. It doesn't matter to anybody else. What is most valuable to you that you're willing to cross the beam for? If you ever had somebody said that their family's important to them and they spend no time with them, is that a lack of congruence? It's eroding your soul as part of that process. So I have attention and energy for those things that I value. And a lot of times we've compromised our values to do it. We can't have 10 number one values. Many years ago, so this is my son, Tim, and they were, my friend Mike phoned me. He says, Ken, there's this invite-only real estate investment opportunity on Thursday. Did you want to go? And I says, yes, sure, I'll go. That's fine. I'd love to learn more about it. About 5:30 that day, my wife Brenda calls me and says, listen, are you coming to the kids' concert or am I picking you up at the office? Kids' concert, what are you talking about? No, Tim's doing a solo in front of the entire gymnasium or the 400 students tonight. So tonight, no, Mike's coming here in 30 minutes and taking me to this real estate only event. I said, well, listen, you've got the camera, you videotape them. I tell Tim that I will watch him as soon as I get back on his solo. And Brenda, of course, at that time, you could hold cell phones. She said, no, you tell him. So passes the phone back to Tim. And I said, Tim, this Uncle Mikey's coming, yada, yada, yada. And my son in his 9 or 10-year-old great wisdom says, Dad, why don't you just say no? And I went to his concert. Thank goodness. He had the whole place rocking. He was a musician. He was in a band later on. And so all of us have a choice to choose one thing over another. Now, I was totally screwed up with this scarcity system because you know what? There's never, ever going to be a real estate opportunity in the history of mankind ever again. That's the last one, which is like false, right? So we're always choosing one thing or another. It's not right. It's not wrong. Could you go into your assessment? I believe it's page 8. And there's a grid there, and we have, I expand this in the book, March More Like Me, and or the online course, but we say, in this grid is every value has a need and fear, and that's driving what we do. So let's just look at some of these things. So challenge is your value, your need is stimulation, your fear is stagnation. So these are driving you. If you go down to the middle of it, there's this one, independence. Independence is one of my top values. So the question is, what's non-negotiable? Why have I owned my own companies or been in roles and responsibility when I had an independent position? So when I worked with the government, I was an inspector, I did my own thing, I reported to the supervisor once a month. When I was a sales rep, I did my territory, had a meeting on Monday morning, that was it, do my own thing. And then I've owned my own company since then. So independence is not for sale. So if somebody said to me, Ken, we're going to give you $1 million if you do what I say, when I say, if it's not, as long as it's not immoral or illegal, and I'll do that and I'll give you that $1 million at the end of the year, it's not for sale. Now I might do it for $1 billion, so I could do what I want forever for the rest of my life, right? So, but I'm not going to do it. So when we think about what our values are, what are the needs that we need for them? So when I was working, for 10 years, we were the senior consultants to Chrysler. We designed all their soft skills program for all of Canada, except for French, and then it went into the Southern Hemisphere as well. So I had an individual that was in one of these dealerships, and he said to me, he said, one of my number one values is honesty. Some of you had honesty, right? And then I watched him as he was communicating about this used car to this client. He didn't lie to them, but he was not in full disclosure of all the things that were going on. In other words, he wasn't revealing about all the details. And I called him on it afterwards, and I said, you said honesty was one of your values, but that's not where you were. You said your honesty is for sale. And he said, well, if I was totally honest, I would lose my job. What's his number one value? Job security, right? So he was willing to exchange his honesty for job security. I'm not here again to judge what it should or shouldn't be, but you should own it. So what we're going to do next, and then we're going to talk about a couple other things to link into it. This is a very powerful exercise for you. I'd like you to take your top 3 or 4 values, and then the second last page of the assessment is a grid that talks about what we call time and tasks. So here's, first of all, transfer, if you have time, transfer your top 4 values over to that second last page where it looks like where you have then you have a rating, and I'll give you your activity here fairly quickly. It's called time and activity. So we're not here to tell you what your most important value is, but let's just go through this. And then we're going to give you an activity to it. You have said these are your top values. Now what you're going to do is you're going to ask yourself this question: is this value being met or not? Who gets to decide if a value is met or not? You do, right? So this was mentioned over here on the side. Some of you said, let's say friendship, and how friendship is fulfilled in your life is unique and proprietary to you. For one person might be, I need to hang out with my friends 2 or 3 times a week, we need to play cards, do movies, do dinners, whatever. And somebody else, it might be like once or twice a month. And that fills me. So what we're gonna ask you to do, you've now got your values here. You can do all 7 later on. We only have time for a few here. Is that value being met? You would give it a positive, or you can give it a gradient value out of 10. So I say, okay, that value is being met. Yeah, I'm going to give it a plus, or I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Or the value is not being met, and I'm going to give it a minus. I'm saying independence is important. With my current job, I got a micromanager, and I'm so frustrated. And every day, it is just consternation in my soul with this environment that I am part of. So I'd like you to kind of rank those values very quickly. I'm going to give you 15 seconds. Is it a plus or minus, or give it a ranking out of 10? Are you meeting it or not? And I'll give you a quick story. I want to encourage you to be authentic. If it's not being met, don't lie to us. There's no benefit to that, or misrepresent. Just call it what it is. True story. I was doing this workshop many years ago for an agricultural group, And we did this activity, and we had an extended workshop. It was about 3.5 hours, where we're really digging into this stuff. And there was a 23-year-old in the back of the room, and he just looked despondent. He wasn't quite crying totally, but he was, he was despondent, and he just didn't look happy. And I pulled him aside, and I said, what's going on? He says, every one of my values is a negative. I said, why do you think that is? He says, my whole life I've lived what my parents want, not what I want. And so we have these external pressures, these expectations, these obligations, these situations where I'm not living what I want to do. So again, when we think about congruence, I want to challenge you in this way. And again, I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't have on your list. But if you have something on your list and you can't make it a positive, why would you have it there? Why would you be frustrated internally forever and live with this lack of congruence? So people that say they want to be healthy, but it ain't going so well, right? So here's the next activity for you, and then you're going to have a partner share. So you're going to do this privately. Here's what I'd like you to do. You can do 3 or 4, whatever how far you can get in the time allotted. Here's what I'd like you to do. You now have a plus or minus beside those 4, 5, 6, 7 values. Start with your first one. If you have a plus, I'd like you to identify, what am I doing that I need to continue to do to keep it a plus? If the value is a negative, what do I need to shift or do differently so it will become a plus? Or the final question, if I'm not willing to make it a plus, why should I have this on this list? So you're now looking at a development opportunity, things practically, this very moment when you leave this room, you are willing and prepared to do, to live that value out, or to continue to live it out, or to change it so it's positive for you. You have about 3 minutes, go. Don't overwhelm yourself. Now, don't give yourself a list of 10 things. What are 1 or 2 things that are going to cause this to happen? Sorry to interrupt. Does anybody have a draw sheet they have not put in? Just put hands up and I'll get it. Now, here's what the research shows. How many are familiar with the fact that there was research done years ago that when you write your goals out, that you're the likelihood of them coming to fruition is greater. The additional research is that when you articulate them and hear your own voice talk about them, they actually anchor at the cellular level. So what I'd like you to do is with a partner is you're going to share back and forth. What's your first value? What are you doing? What did you rank? What are you going to do about it? And then they're going to do theirs. And you go back and forth at the time allotted, which is be about 3-4 minutes. And then we have some wrap-up comments to kind of get as we get to the end of this. You all have a partner, and if there's 3 of you, you really have to move through this quickly, okay? So respect of that. So with your partner, with a partner, share what your value is, what you ranked, what are you going to do about it, and then they do the same thing and go back and forth as quickly as you can in the 3 minutes that's allotted. You may begin. Go. Thirty-second warning. Start wrapping up. And can you thank your partner, please? Thank your partner. Now we're attempting to be completed here in about 3 minutes and 38 seconds or so. So first of all, you have just begun the process. Go back into the assessment, do the matrix, spend some time around the time and tasks and value program. Don't be like me where I'm questioning and not going to my son's concert when I shouldn't even have been a doubt. What would it mean if you could make the right decision every time? Now, it is a play on words, but there are too many situations in life. You can't make a situational decision anymore. It's values-based decisions. What would it mean if you would filter every major decision through this value set? And if it's not there, then you know that you can't sustain engagement. But if this is true for you, is this true for everybody else around you? We started this through the credibility gap. The reality is that your value is not right and mine's wrong. It's just we're different. And so sometimes credibility is a gap there because we have differences that are coming into play. We had a client had a 400% turnover, and he called me in and he said, "Why don't you do some consulting with us?" And I started to look at it. He was hiring people with tranquility as one of their number one values. What is a credit collection call center like? And I said, "Why are you doing that?" He says, "Well, we have a terrible reputation and I wanted to hire nice people." Yeah, but every moment is conflict. It's stress, and that's why they had a 400% turnover. We had another friend who said they had the sales team and it wasn't performing. And they said, "Why don't we make the performance incentives based on their values?" And they had a 41% increase because it was based on incentives that were important, which was community. So they had like trips to Vegas or whatever instead of just giving them money. And they had this sort of collegial fun together instead. You know, when we think about values, it also applies to leadership. Jim Kuza says organizations that are clear about their values are 40% more effective. You know, when your core values are there, you get the direction that you need. You have all the things that we talked about before. Again, if you want, somebody was asking about signing books. I'm going to be in 10 minutes. I'm going to be over by the registration table and sign books, meet, talk, whatever that you need or want. So we're going to do we've already drawn. And did we not say that Cheryl did the draw? And Tracy McMillan? Okay, so Tracy, what we're gonna do is you're just gonna get this online and it's gonna be in your account and we'll take care of that with you, okay? So, final spot. What would it mean if you could make the right decision? My encouragement is that you would live by what is important to you. If it's not on your list, if you can't be congruent with it, it's okay to let it go. It is okay to let it go. And that you can then fulfill your highest calling, which is serving others. Thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate hanging out with you guys. Look forward to meeting some of you around lunch.
Thank you so much, Dr. Keis. We so greatly appreciate you. All right, so it is time to eat. So we're going to have we will have food out. Please enjoy yourself. Take some time to meet with our exhibitors. Take the time to really get to know them. Go see each booth. And we'll be starting right back with symposium at 12:45. Thank you again, Ken.